even though that was an attempt to send an incubus or succubus spirit to him. You know, it's like his story is a great one that shows you how good God is. I mean, he's somebody who says openly that he had been locked up, I think, for 27 years for all kinds of unalivings and things like that, but was able to turn everything around. But that doesn't mean that in spite of having turned his life around and, you know, walking the narrow path, the attacks, that they still weren't going to come. But it can be tempting to look at that and to even begin to like entertain, you know, well-intentioned but slightly inaccurate doctrines where people begin to imply that somehow because an attack is sent that there's ownership. But that's not the case. The enemy would like for anybody to think that if you felt the effects of an attack, that it's because you're owned or you're not your own, or, you know, that somebody like has a right to you. But that's not the case. And just because there's an attack that's being sent doesn't mean that the one that sent the attack owned you and that's why it happened, or they, you know, that you no longer belong to Jesus or anything like that. A lot of times the attack is to attempt to open a door, but then I also noticed that it's a lot of like vindictive attacking, where it's like, what I wanted to do to you didn't work, so I'm going to do this to you to try to get your attention, to try to get you to focus on the enemy instead of focusing on God, to try to dishearten you, to try to make you, especially to try to take your joy away, to try to make you feel like you don't have any power, to try to throw you off balance, to try to make you feel like God isn't who he says he is, you know, like things like that. Like, it's a lot of manipulation, but it's a lot of vindictive attacking where it's like, okay, well, I couldn't do all these things to you, but I can still do this, so I'll do it. It's a lot of that. But I just wanted to hop on here and just make note and begin to at least establish the digital paper trail of the patterns that it is, the warfare patterns within the body of Christ. Because the patterns are absolutely there. There's a number of different channels. I'm thinking Chosen Spiritual, Diamond Royal Ministries, DMV Ministries, and then also Just from Craft of Christ, are just a few that I'm thinking of right now who have had the exact same attacks at the exact same times as myself.